It's time for a Drummer Nation. Welcome to Drummer Nation. This is your host, Michael Vosbein, and this is show number 22. Jazz is the teacher, funk is the preacher. In this show, I'm happy to have as a guest Stanton Moore, and that's something I've heard him say several times. Seemed like an apropos title. This is one of the remaining interviews I did at the Gen Conference in New Orleans. So Stanton will talk a lot about jazz education and how he goes about practicing and learning new ideas. I also have new digs. You may notice I had a 400 square foot stage lit with cameras and sound and a warehouse by Atlanta Pro Percussion that was just more space than we needed. So I have moved to an undisclosed subterranean location somewhere in North Georgia. Okay, it's my basement. Anyway, I dig it down here. Reminds me of the old 80s when we talk about working on our studio tan. Because there is no ambient light, there's no ambient sound. You can spend hours in here doing great work, go upstairs and not know if it's night or day. We're also happy to announce a new sponsor. Many of you know me as the founder of Crescent Cymbals, which were later acquired by Sabian. We initially turned to our friends at Sabian because of their ongoing commitment to offering drummers the choice of genuine handcrafted cymbals. In fact, it's been an integral part of their DNA since the company began. I'm proud to now welcome Sabian Cymbals as an official sponsor of Drummer Nation. The former Crescent Vanguard series are now widely available as part of the legendary Sabian HH models. HH cymbals are traditionally hand-hammered into shape and sound by Sabian craftsmen. Each cymbal receives between 2,000 and 4,000 hammer blows, resulting in increased musicality, tonal complexity, and unmatched sonic texture favored by drummers in the know for generations. Find out more about the Vanguard series and all other Sabian models at Sabian.com. Thanks for doing this, Stan. You're the first guest to be on more than once.
Oh, I like it. How cool is that?
Yeah, it's very cool. So the last time we were in Athens, Georgia, and you detailed for us your whole new Stanton Moore Academy.
Yes.
But now we're in your hometown, mine too, New Orleans, at the Gen Conference Jazz Educator Network.
Yep.
And you're performing today with a trio. Is it a concert performance?
Yes. I'll be performing later with my trio with David Torkanowski and James Singleton.
Do you have a clever educator title, like the use of minor seconds in Bill Evans' Left Hand on the Riverside recording of such and such from such and such?
No, but I have a broader concept, I gotta be me.
Now, you're known as a funk drummer. I know you play all kinds of styles, but you have recently your own jazz trio, and you have recordings with that.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Well, jazz has been a side of my playing that has informed all of my funk and groove playing for years, and I used to play a lot of jazz gigs, but not necessarily on the national or international level, and not necessarily on recordings, and not in a way that the general public would have heard me. So around here in New Orleans, I've done things here and there for years, but I really wanted to focus on that side of my playing. I think after I finished Groove Alchemy, I felt like I had just put myself through a doctoral program on funk and groove drumming, and I wanted to put myself through a similar kind of program with the jazz side of my playing. Not necessarily write a book in the process, but just really go down deep with all of that pursuit. And so I've done that just in studying transcription, studying records, seeking out information, getting together with our mutual friend Jeff Hamilton, and he'll invite me over to drink a glass of wine and check out the sunset, and I'll try to get him up in his loft where he's got drums, and I'll sit down and start playing stuff with brushes which of course is a terrifying prospect. But
I've been there.
yeah,
Yes.
But of course, with the full notion that hopefully he'll wind up showing me something, and so I've picked up a good bit from Jeff, especially with the brushes and talking about the stroke and you know, just refining what it is that I do in a jazz context. Also took a couple lessons with Kenny Washington. I've gotten together in a hotel room with John Riley and discussed different stickings and different approaches to playing some of the very well-known Philly Joe Jones phrases. And there's all, you know, different people have different, very concrete beliefs, and this is how he was sticking certain things, and you know, so to get together with John, who has obviously studied Philly Joe, and compare his stickings to some of Kenny's stickings and some of how I would want to play it in what would feel more natural for me. So there's, you know, just the constant seeking of information just really, I think, it starts to show up in your playing, and it's a constant growth process, right?
That's the key to being an artist.
Yeah.
Now, drumming in general, drum set playing, certainly New Orleans drumming, funk drumming, all that stuff is informed by jazz anyway, right?
Oh, I think 100%. I mean, and I've said this for a while. Jazz is the teacher, funk is the preacher. So for me,
I like that.
Yeah. So for me, I've for years checked out Philly Joe, Elvin Jones, Tony Williams recordings and transcriptions, and have picked up a lot of vocabulary from their vocabulary and learned how to do it in a funk context. So I mean, you know, if you're just taking a Philly Joe thing, like spang, spang-a-lang, 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 ba-la, ba-ba-la, ba-ba-la, ba-la, ba-ba-la, ba-ba-la,
It's a 3-2 thing going on.
right? So yeah, so there's different ways you can stick that, but then you take it and in a funk, you know, boom, loomba, boom, loomba, boom, da, boom, loomba, boom, loomba, boom, da, boom, boom, limba, boom, limba, boom, limba, boom, ba, boom, ba, boom, ba, boom, boom. You know.
Lends itself to the big four, doesn't it?
Yeah, and then you can extend different things and improvise with that. So I've always made a point, whatever I learn, whether it's from a recording or a transcription or hanging out with my good friend Jeff Clapp, we get together and set up 2 drum sets, and we'll start trading fours. I don't know if we've ever gotten past 3 fours each before one of us stops and says, wait a minute, show me that.
How'd you do that?
You know, yeah, exactly. And so, that's something
Yeah.
I picked up from Tane, or, you know, that's something I picked up from Gregory Hutchinson.
Or I don't know, I did that.
Or,
What the
you know,
hell did I
I
do
have no
anyway?
idea. And I'll make him slow it down, and I'll figure out how it relates to a particular rudiment. So then that way I know it backwards and forwards. And I'm like, oh, it's just this, but it starts on the right hand. And he'll say, oh, I guess that is what it is. But then for me, that helps internalize what it is and helps me understand it backwards, forwards, and inside and out. And so whenever I'm learning things, I'll take it, I'll learn what it is, and then I'll improvise on it and come up with my own interpretation of it. And that's, you know, something that Johnny Vidakovich started teaching me a long time ago, and we just watched Johnny together yesterday.
Wasn't he wonderful?
And it was unbelievable.
Ed Soph, of all people.
Yeah.
No slouch, you know, great drummer.
Yeah.
Came up to me afterwards and says, I've had a rebirth.
Yeah, for real. Yeah.
That's how deep Johnny was.
That's how deep Johnny's playing is, and it's, you know, it's just beautiful and so pure, and his voice, his approach, and it's so unique, and you know, you just have to admire that. I think, especially nowadays, there's, you know, so many people playing now, but it's so rare that you get a voice that just jumps out and says, "Ooh, there's nobody else."
You know what I told him when
like
I came
that.
off stage? I said, you're an American original.
Yeah.
And a
he
national
really is.
treasure.
And he really is. And you know, you've got, for better or worse, you've got nowadays certain common vocabulary. You've got a lot of guys who sound very similar to each other, and a lot of guys who are kind of trying to do, you know, a similar approach to the same thing. And I don't hear a lot of diversity.
And it might work well for the music. but
Yeah.
it's hard to know who they are when you hear it.
Yeah, and with Johnny Vodakovich, you know exactly who he is.
Signature's there.
So he always told me, whatever you learn, put your thumbprint on it. So sure, I've checked out a lot of transcriptions, a lot of records, but I tried to always, if I'm playing a transcription, I'll find one or two ideas, and say it's a 3-note idea, and Elvin carried it for two successions, you know, and then he moved on to something else. I'll learn how to put it across the bar line for, you know, ongoing, start it in different places, voice it differently, and then improvise with it in a headspace that is not analyzing it, but just exploring it, having fun with it, and then until I come up with something that is unique to me and not necessarily just copying what he did.
Well, that leads me to my next point, which is, to be a jazz player, you have to come to terms with the brushes.
Yeah.
And I've seen your brush playing just explode, and I know it's informed by Jeff Hamilton and the Florian Alexander stuff.
Yeah.
But you've been one to just grab what's out there, go to the guys, get the source, and then you kill that, and then the next time I hear you, it's yours.
Yeah.
And there's some Stanton Moore stuff coming out of that.
I mean, I've taken some of what Florian has done and combined it with some of what Jeff has shown me, and then I learned how to do all of the stickings that I've been doing over the years. And it took me months of practicing at 40 beats per minute in my pajamas with a cup of coffee on the front
Every
of the
time I
bus.
see you on the road, you say, look, let
Yeah.
me show you what I got.
Yeah.
And it would
And
always be something hip and new that you had been informed by the real, traditional, authentic, but now it's yours.
Yeah, and you know, I don't want to copy. I mean, I would love to be able to copy Jeff Hamilton, but that, why do that? He's already doing that, you know.
You can't do Jeff better than
You
Jeff.
can't do Jeff better than Jeff. So I try to, you know, take what he does and reinterpret it and use it in a way that I can use it, you know. I mean, I can't go boom, bzz, bop, bzz, bop, bzz, bop, bzz, bop,
I can't do that either.
right? And I can't do it, right? But I'm still shedding it. And maybe one of these days I
I've
will
been
be
trying.
able to.
I don't think I'll ever
You
get
know, but I've come up with my own ways of doing all these things that fit my music. If I
course.
try to do that with either my trio or Galactic, you know, especially with Galactic, it would get swallowed up, you know. I wouldn't, you know, well, I learned how to do that with brushes.
to work in that band in that setting.
Right, and I can play brushes with volume and power.
Never heard you do it.
Sometimes maybe a little too much volume and power, but for my playing situations,
Yeah, not for Galactic.
I need that kind of thing. So all that super delicate stuff, I'm still shedding it, and maybe by the time I'm Jeff's age, I'll be able to do some more of it.
There you
But
go. So what's the name? Let's plug the trio. Stanton Moore Trio?
well, you know, I like to bill it as Stanton Moore featuring David Torkanowski and James Singleton because for years I toured with the Stanton Moore Trio. That was Robert Walter,
Right.
Will Bernard, and sometimes Will Blades, sometimes Scott Metzger. But so when I started calling this new piano trio Stanton Moore Trio, then people get confused and they show up thinking that it's going to be the funk thing with the organ. But so now the easiest way to do it is just say Stanton Moore featuring Robert Walter, Will Bernard. Then people know what that is.
Well, what's the album name? You got great reviews in the jazz media.
Yeah, the name of the record is Conversations.
So you have a steady gig at Snug Harbor when you're in town?
I do on Tuesday nights, and that's been just, you know, for me, I don't ever want to take that for granted. I keep, you know, pinching myself that I'm lucky that they let me keep doing that. We've been drawing great crowds though, so hopefully they'll let me keep
delivering the goods musically and delivering the crowds.
Yeah.
You'll never have to worry about that.
Yeah, so it's really fun that sometimes we'll have guests come and sit in. Eric Bloom's been coming and playing trumpet, and he'll play 4 or 5 tunes in each set. Sean Jones just came and played trumpet. What an amazing cat, and he had about 5 or 6 trumpet players there to see him, and he invited them all up on the last 2 tunes, and that was super fun. Cyril Neville's been coming by to sing with us, because I just did a record that'll be out in April that is the trio with many special guests. So this will be my new record, and it is David Torkanowski and James Singleton, but then we added all of these special guests in. Cyril Neville singing 5 tunes. We've got Nicholas Payton, Donald Harrison Jr., and this young kid that I've just discovered that I think is going to really do some stuff. His name is Trombone Shorty.
Ah!
And,
yeah,
right? So,
just discovered him.
Yeah, just discovered. But
well, you live in New Orleans, man. There's no shortage of great players.
Oh, you see, that's what we started doing is we started recording this record, and we started it as a trio. It was like, oh, man, you know what would be great is to get somebody to sing on this. Well, let me see if Cyril's around. Oh, man, we need some horns on this. You know what I would love? Nicholas, Donald Harrison Jr., and Shorty. Wouldn't that be a great section? You know, and then
so you call them up. They're here.
You know, David Torkanowski has explained being a musician in New Orleans is like living in the greatest musical toolbox you could possibly imagine. You're like, ooh, I want to do this now. I want this. And so that's kind of how the record evolved. And then we added Maceo Parker to it. Skerrick is on it. Yeah. Eric Bloom's on it.
Great.
Mike Dillon came by and played some percussion.
I know Mike.
This amazing singer, Kiki Phillips, who is one of Topsy Chapman's daughters. She sang all these things. And Erica Falls and Kiki did backgrounds. I can't wait for you to hear it.
I can't wait to hear it. Well, listen, I know you have a clinic to get to, and this is a short format anyway.
Yeah.
So it's your second visit. We'll have many more.
Yes, indeed.
Thanks for doing the show again.
Yes, indeed.
This is your host, Michael Vosbine, and I want to thank our friends at Atlanta Pro Percussion, Danette Classic Drums, Sabian Cymbals, and Classic Drummer Magazine. We'll see you again in 2 weeks.